This is ThinkTech Hawaii. Community matters here.
Hey, good afternoon from Pioneer Plaza in beautiful downtown Honolulu. I'm Mike Elliott, your host today from Drone Services Hawaii. Ted, he's off in New Mexico doing some great work with regard to drone technology and giving a large briefing out in New Mexico. So he'll be back next week and talk to you a little bit more about that. Today is December 7th, 76th anniversary of the attacks here in Hawaii and in Pearl Harbor. And at the forefront oftentimes is the USS Arizona, but also a number of other sites that had come under attack on that fateful day 76 years ago. Wanted to kind of shift a little bit of what we were talking about today to utilization of drones and some cinematography and some work that we were fortunate enough to do with Tim Gray of the World War II Foundation. The World War II Foundation is dedicated to telling the stories of veterans before the greatest generation passes. Many of these men and some women are in their 90s, or even there was a gentleman today who was just over 100 years old that was over at one of the events over at Hickam today. And there are very few of them left, and there are very few of the survivors from the Arizona that day, and fewer still from the overall folks that had survived those attacks. And even in the civilian community here in Hawaii that was greatly impacted with a number of deaths, about 46, I believe, that had occurred in the local Hawaiian community out around from some of the attack sites. But what I wanted to focus on was talk a little bit about some of the work that Tim Gray and the World War II Foundation, a nonprofit that actually is in the process, has been for a number of years now, telling the stories of veterans in their own words and the different battles that had taken place that were definitive in World War II. And Tim Gray has spent some time out here doing some different films, and there'll be another with regard to Pearl Harbor, but he'd done, last year we had the 75th anniversary film, which we were fortunate enough to be part of, filming some drone aerials for them to be able to do that. And then just recently that was premiered, and actually was last night on PBS here locally, was the Journey Home, Return to the Arizona, which was a documentary basically about the internment process that takes place for the survivors if they desire and choose to be interred with their shipmates at the USS Arizona. And it was a very moving film, and once again was honored that some of the great shots that we were able to get last year were incorporated into that film, and Tim Gray and his staff doing a wonderful job of telling these stories. I was very fortunate enough to have a phone call with Tim last year. He asked about doing the project over at Pearl Harbor, and I said yes. I worked over there previously. I was at whatever we need to do, we're going to make this happen. It took us about 4 months, the overall effort, just trying to get all the permissions necessary for flying a drone over there. Base permissions, some FAA authorizations that we had to get at the time, and then putting together a team of personnel that we had. We had 6 folks that were out with us when we shot that day for all the scenes that we did. So everything was very well planned, orchestrated, safety, how we were flying, where we were flying, the exact shots that we were actually going to be trying to capture for Tim that he could incorporate into the film. And it was very much an honor to be able to do that. The type of work that is ongoing in drone cinematography is new work. It really is, but it is being heavily incorporated into a lot of TV shows, movies, commercials that are being shot, and it is becoming a go-to, must-have type of technology for a lot of these different types of shows that are being shot. In the coming years, the World War II Foundation has projects that they want to shoot in the Pacific. Looking to go to possibly Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Peleliu, and tell some of those stories at those locations. And once again, possibly utilizing drone technology to actually shoot some very intimate shots in some of these remote locations to tie that story together from when some of these events occurred on some of the during some of the island hopping campaigns, and then tie it to what the place is now. And it is very much like I said, an honor to be able to be part of something like that. So if you're interested in supporting the World War II Foundation, they are a nonprofit. Tim works very hard to pull together some incredible films. All their films are available also on their website if you want to check them out. But you can go to the World War II Foundation.org. It's WWII Foundation.org. And you can learn a little bit more about what he's been doing and some of the work that's been going on here. And he is always working, always looking for another project, and is a nonstop, dedicated person to being able to tell these stories. So check it out when you get a chance. One of the first, I had a trailer from one of the films that we did last year for the 75th anniversary. Tim has been able to get some really high-profile stars to work to narrate some of these films. This one was for the 75th anniversary, was narrated by Tom Selleck, and it was premiered over at the Pacific Aviation Museum last year. We probably had, it seemed like 2,000 people that were there, and it was really spectacular to have such a huge crowd for the 75th anniversary, and also to have a film like this debut telling that story once again. And if we have that clip, could we go ahead and roll that? The 75th anniversary clip. That was the YouTube. Yeah. Just 1 second, folks. We'll be right with you.
Bunch of kids, what, 20, 21, 19? Nobody knew what the hell war was at that time.
There's that day that doesn't go by that I don't think of these things.
I looked into the well of the boat and there was 35 soldiers in there, and I don't think there was an atheist in there, because every one of us
Ladies and gentlemen, the Richard D. Winters Leadership Monument recognizing all those who led the way on D-Day.
Everything that you and I are today is a result of their sacrifice.
I've always been proud of the uniform I wore, the boys that I served with.
Yeah, so this is just basically a summary, a highlight of some of the films that have been done. And at the end there, you saw someone who you may be familiar with and have seen here locally on TV, Daniel Martinez, who's the historian over at the Valor in the Pacific Memorial and is a Arizona historian. He's been out here, I think, since about 1985. Daniel's a national treasure. He is someone who has worked very hard and tirelessly to pull together the truth of every little story that was out there surrounding the attacks here in Pearl Harbor and of the USS Arizona. And if you ever have a chance and you see him over at the memorial, you should take a moment just to talk with him, shake his hand, and thank him for all the hard work that he's done over the years. One of the projects that he's talked about is, once again, they want to, the USS Utah, and possibly utilizing some drone footage to support the project that they want to highlight, doing a film on the USS Utah from the National Park Service, which once again would be a tremendous honor to be able to do that. And we really like where supporting some of these films that tell a historical background. It's a moment in time that'll be captured in perpetuity. And any time that we've had a chance to support any projects like this, we jump to and have really enjoyed being able to bring some of the technology, some of the drone technology that we have available. Yeah, I looked at some of the video that we'd shot just a year ago, and I see how far some of the technology has actually come in some of the camera quality that we have available, some of the flight time redundancies, and some of the methods in which we can actually fly. And think how much more we could have actually done in just that 1 year span of time if we were to reshoot some of those exact same scenes. So it's very exciting to be able to bring that technology to some future projects and possibly head out here into the Pacific in the near future. And some of the folks that are still here with the World War II Foundation, if you're out at some of the memorials, either over at the Pacific Aviation Museum, the Arizona Memorial, the Missouri, they have some of the different books, the DVDs that are out there that are available if you want to check that out. If you're heading out that way today, possibly just to take a moment and reflect upon the events 76 years ago. And we'll move on to, we've got a break coming up here in about a minute, right? I believe so? Okay. So after we come back from the break and stuff, we'll highlight one of the most recent films that we had with the Journey Home, the USS Arizona, the internment film that was done, and just to kind of give you a highlight of that process. And like I said, that film is going to air again locally on PBS, I believe on the 10th of December at 12 p.m. and it'll be on PBS again. So you can check your local listings where you're at and find some of these great films that are out there, or you can go to WWII and rent any of these films to view that highlight some of the valor of the Americans that fought during World War II, the civilian community that mobilized to support them, and just the tremendous efforts that went into saving the world 76 years ago.
Aloha, my name is Mark Shklav. I am the host of ThinkTech Hawaii's Law Across the Sea. Law Across the Sea comes on every other Monday at 11 a.m. Please join us. I like to bring in guests that talk about all types of things that come across the sea to Hawaii. Not just law, love, people, ideas, history. Please join us for Law Across the Sea. Aloha.
Hello everyone, I'm DeSoto Brown, the co-host of Human Humane Architecture, which is seen on ThinkTech Hawaii every other Tuesday at 4 p.m. And with the show's host, Martinez, we discuss architecture here in the Hawaiian Islands and how it not only affects the way we live, but other aspects of our life, not only here in Hawaii, but internationally as well. So join us for Human Humane Architecture every other Tuesday at 4 p.m. on ThinkTech Hawaii.
Hey, welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii. My name is Mike Elliott, filling in for Ted Ralston here this Thursday afternoon. Nice and chilly, cool Thursday afternoon here in Honolulu, Hawaii. We've been talking a little bit about drones and cinematography, and wanted to, because it's the 7th of December, highlighting some work that we were fortunate enough to do with Tim Gray of the World War II Foundation, and just how meaningful and impactful that was for us. The team that we put together, mostly veterans, some not, but some that, even those that were not, the events of 76 years ago, and at the time, 75 years ago, is very impactful and meaningful to our nation, and especially those living here in Hawaii. It shaped and changed Hawaii tremendously. And the service and sacrifice of all those that fought and died in the Second World War is not forgotten upon the folks here in Hawaii. The fear of possible Japanese invasion following the attacks on the 7th of December loomed large with many of the folks that lived here. And to be a part of a film that was honoring the sacrifice on that day, and to talk with the survivors and have them as part of this great film project was very much humbling for everybody that was part of it. Like I said, unfortunately, the greatest generation, of which a number of Pearl Harbor survivors that were on board the Arizona, at some point later, I think it was in the 80s, had asked the Navy about internment, to be back with their shipmates aboard the USS Arizona. And this film, the highlight that we're going to play up here next, is just a short synopsis of this most recent film that talks about that process and the families involved, and that history and how that process takes place. So the next time you go out to that memorial, and you look to your left or you look to your right, when you're looking at all the names, the 1,177 sailors and Marines that died on board the USS Arizona that day, you look to your left, you look to your right. Those are the individuals that have been interred with the Arizona, turret number 4, since I believe it was the mid-'80s when the Navy first allowed some of those first interments to take place. So if we can go ahead and roll that highlight film.
The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked.
You see the Japanese planes coming in. A lot of confusion. Blew me in the water.
19 years old. It's hard to even imagine what that could have been like.
As he got older, he would start to feel like maybe he wanted to be back with his shipmates.
I hope that's where his final resting place will be.
We cannot offer enough thanks and appreciation to Mr. Harry and all the members of our greatest generation.
I'd like to see him spend eternity with his shipmates.
The divers will go in and then go down with the urn and place it.
Master Chief Raymond Harry was one of those men who changed the world. He taught us about honor, about service to his country, about integrity, and yes, about toughness.
As we bring Raymond Harry to his final resting place here on earth, we pray that your blessings and your peace will be upon all those who rest here.
Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service. Thank you.
And this highlight from the most recent film from the World War II Foundation, while it's different because it is not about necessarily the battles themselves, but about this particular process of internment back at the USS Arizona, that coming full circle, and being able to recognize and honor a veteran for their many years of faithful service, and to never forget the tragedy of that day. And like I said, just aboard the Arizona alone, 1,177 died that day on board that ship. And we often go about our daily lives thinking about many things that are of no consequence, and get concerned about those things. But we have, lives not lived, children that never were, a career that never was, because of many of the sacrifices that these men and women over the years, whether from any of our nation's wars, to protect the freedoms that we have. And so taking the time to be able to honor these individuals is really, really, really critical. And that's why, like some of the work that we're looking forward to doing, it's very much a passion for us to be able to continue to support this type of work, and to be able to bring these stories to people around the world. I think that being able to assist Tim Gray and the World War II Foundation with some of the technology that we have, in being able to do that is a tremendous blessing. That for myself, a retired naval officer, being able to give back in that way is something that is very meaningful and passionate for myself, and we look forward to the upcoming films in the coming years that the World War II Foundation is going to be doing. And we hope that you have the opportunity and take the time occasionally, if you're living here in Hawaii, to go and visit out at Punch Bowl. There's also a cemetery out in town, I believe, that has a number of sailors, Marines, airmen, and soldiers that were killed on December 7th that are buried in some of the different graves out there, not just in Punch Bowl. Visit the memorials and take the time to remember the events of those fateful days on and around December 7th, and to look back, cherish, and reflect, I guess, upon all that we have. Thankful to the greatest generation that sacrificed so much. Over 416,000 lives were lost, American lives, in the Second World War. Over 600,000 casualties, wounded, that we had. Over 16 million people had mobilized for the war. And we still, and then civilian community and industry, it was a nationwide effort. And those efforts and those times, like I said, it can only be repaid by just remembrance and saying thank you. So if you have the time and the opportunity, just take a moment and stop by any of the memorials. And if you're over at the Arizona Memorial and you see Daniel Martinez, thank him for being the person who has spent so much of his life telling the story of Pearl Harbor, and the sailors on board the Arizona and the other ships that were attacked in Pearl Harbor. He has worked very hard to bring these stories together. They're actually in the process of recovering documents, letters, photos of those that perished on that fateful day to build this narrative of all these individuals. So it's an ongoing effort. History is not static. It's always a learning process, and there's new information that's always out there. And you know, like I said, Daniel Martinez, a national treasure and should be recognized as such. But I just want to thank Tim for that opportunity. Like I said, we've had to work with him. We look forward to doing that in the future. We hope that the community sees how drone technology can be utilized in so many amazing facets to tell stories. Whether it's a TV show, movie, or building out a narrative for a commercial that you're trying to do, this type of technology is definitely where the future is. And it's safe. It's extremely safe technology. The FAA administrator at Interdrone earlier this year acknowledged that he was very impressed with the having no reports of any serious injuries, damage, death. Unlike other aircraft, helicopters that are usually flying for film, there's a number of accidents that occur every year and death and injury that occur on a recurrent basis throughout the year. But the drones have been extremely reliable when utilized in these commercial applications in film and TV production. So we want to see that encouraged and continued, and we'd like to work to continue to build that industry here in Hawaii. We look forward to having a lot of community support to be able to do that and to be able to continue to make great films like we've done in supporting Tim Gray with the World War II Foundation. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity today. Take a moment, say a prayer for those who perished December 7th, 76 years ago. And if you have a moment, check out worldwar2foundation.org, and you can donate, you can rent any of the films, you can buy the entire catalog of films available too. And that supports the furthering of their mission and being able to tell these stories before the greatest generation passes away. I'm Mike Elliott, down here at Pioneer Plaza, downtown Honolulu, signing off, and thank you very much.